We saw the DC Trinity in Dark Knights of Steel, but did you ever wonder what the Deathstroke of this universe would look like? Welcome to the Comicstorian Complete Story Series, where we take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Dark Knights of Steel was a masterpiece by Tom Taylor, and DC has continued the universe with the new spin-off series, Dark Knights of Steel Allwinter. A story of Vikings in the Game of Thrones style universe that Tom Taylor had created. And who else but Deathstroke could be among them? This is Dark Knights of Steel Allwinter, issues 1 and 2 by J. Kristoff. I hope you enjoy. The gray landscape of the frozen north stretches out. The Allwinter is upon us, and snow billows from a colorless sky. Two armies roar and meet in battle. Footsteps crunch against the snow as swords and axes cleave into enemies. Blood falls freely, but it is just as colorless as the world around them. Upon a hill, the Jarl, known as Black Mask, watches his warriors fight. But elsewhere, an arrow is fired from a powerful crossbow. The arrow bounces through the battlefield, pinging off of shields, axes, and helms, until it finally finds its mark. Black Mask doesn't even see his death coming before it meets him. He falls from his horse swiftly, collapsing into the frosty wasteland. On a nearby hill, the warrior, known as Deathstroke, lowers his crossbow and turns away, grunting at Jarl Vandal Savage as he moves back towards his horse. 2 decades have gone, and your aim is keen as ever, Slade, Savage says with a smile. The Jarl turns back to the battle. His smile grows as Black Mask's warriors realize their leader is dead and turn to run. Slade pays the battle no mind as he loads his weapon onto his horse and mounts the beast. "I'm off to find a bath," he grunts as he rides away, ignoring Savage's call for his warriors to slay the opposing army before they can flee. That night, snow continues to fall from the sky on the rooftops of Agium, home of the Vandal clan. The mead hall is bright with a colorless fire burning in the hearth. Warriors cheer as Jarl Savage steps forward, holding his hands for quiet. "Brothers and sisters, for 21 years has the Allwinter lain thick upon these lands. But while some have withered in the chill since the Old Kingdom fell, we have prospered," Savage calls. The cheers ring louder as he raises his drinking horn. "For blood and honor!" Savage cries. Though the merrymaking is infectious, one warrior sits quietly in the shadows of the mead hall. Slade Wilson looks out of his one good eye. But he is joined by Savage and his second, the woman known as Killer Frost. "The victory is yours as well, old man. Will you not drink with us?" Savage asks as he offers Slade a horn of mead. But the old assassin shakes his head and pulls out his own flask. "I brought my own," he says as he takes a swig. With his thirst slacked, Slade requests the rest of the coin he is owed for Black Mask's death. Savage smiles and motions to the door. "Walk with me," he says. He leads Slade out to a balcony and motions to the city below them. Waving his hand, he explains to Slade that the Vandal clan has the makings of an empire. One forged in the frozen blood of the Old Kingdom and the fire of constant war, Savage explains. But Slade shakes his head. "War never gives, Jarl Vander. It only takes," Slade reminds him, once again asking for his payment. Savage smiles. "Is that all Deathstroke lives for now? The clink of a coin in his purse?" Savage asks. He looks back over his snow-covered city and makes Slade an offer. "What would you say if I asked you to capture a monster for me? A Draugr from the pits of hell who means to unmake all that I have made?" Savage asks. Slade ponders it for a moment before taking another swig from his flask. He finally turns his one-eyed gaze to the Jarl. "I'd say, how much?" he growls. And so, a bargain is struck, and Deathstroke sets out under the protection of Jarl Savage's warriors and longships, accompanied by Caitlin, also known as Killer Frost. The longships push through the colorless waves of the coast, heading for a distant land. Slade glances down at the dark shades of gray that break against the ship's hull. "You know, these oceans used to be blue once. Blue as a babe's eyes," Slade growls to Frost. She smiles as she continues to row. "I'll take you at your word. Somewhat before my time," she reminds him. Suddenly, the lookout calls a warning, bellowing that they are heading for rocks in the water, but Slade stands up. "There are no rocks out here," he mutters. The surface of the water suddenly churns as a massive monster rears up, its maw opening wide as it lets out a hungry roar at its captured prey. The Kraken slams down onto one of the longships, smashing it to tinder and sending the crew into the gray ocean. Killer Frost stands and calls upon her power, sending shards of deadly ice slashing into the creature, but having little to no effect on it. The creature turns its gaze upon her, and Frost's hand falls to her side. "Gods below," she whispers as death rears towards her. But Slade takes another swig from his flask before standing. He hefts two axes in his hands and charges forward, pushing past Frost and leaping into the air with a bellow of rage. But the Kraken meets him and swallows him whole. The warriors all stare in shock as the monster disappears beneath the waves and the ocean becomes calm once more. "Gods, it swallowed him! The Deathstroke slain!" the warriors whisper. Frost shakes her head. "I warned Vander that he should have hired the other one," she sighs. But the water breaks again as the Kraken returns to the surface. But now, it's not moving. The warriors all watch as the monster's skin begins to pulse, and suddenly, an axe rips through from the inside. Slade rips his way free from the monster's guts, his body steaming from the bloody entrails as it meets the frigid air. "I need another bath," he grumbles. 6 days later, the warriors have reached their destination, the city of Dodsriv on the Isle of Sikkim. Accompanied by Killer Frost, Deathstroke slips inside a temple and hides in the shadows, the warriors stationed nearby. "Remember, strike hard and swiftly. The beast will ensorcel you if it can," Frost whispers over his shoulder. "Never saw a spell that an axe to the face couldn't end," Slade grunts. He holds up a hand as cloaked figures begin to approach. Slade leaps from the shadows with a war cry as Frost lashes out with her wintry powers, dropping two of the cloaked figures with shards of ice. The cloaked figures draw their weapons and meet the attack, but Slade moves among them quickly, his axe slashing through his foes as he blocks and ducks beneath their attacks. But a woman protects a small cloaked figure. "Adeline!" the child yells. Slade suddenly whirls at the name. "Addie?" he whispers as he pulls off his helmet. Frost lashes out, stabbing through Adeline with an icy shard. The woman falls to her knees as Killer Frost steps forward. "Stop! You have no idea what you're doing!" Adeline begs, but Frost shakes her head and smiles. "I know exactly what I'm doing," she says. She prepares to make a killing strike, but an axe spins through the air and embeds itself in her shoulder. Frost lets out a scream of pain as she falls to the floor. She turns back to see Slade stalking forward. "What madness is this?" she demands. Slade raises his weapon as he steps between Adeline, her young charge, and Frost. "That's my wife you just shot, Caitlin," he growls. Two warriors help Frost to her feet. "Honorless old dog, Savage will have your head for this betrayal," she snaps. Slade nods and pulls off his money pouch, throwing it at her feet. "Here's his coin back. If Savage weighs our debt heavier, he can come find me. Before this old dog really shows his teeth," he growls. Caitlin glares at him as she and her warriors flee. A moment of calm falls over the temple, and Slade turns back to Adeline and her charge. "Been a long time, Adeline," he says softly, but she glares at him. "Not long enough," she snaps. Slade steps forward, but the young charge moves to stop him. "You're no beast. You're a boy," Slade notes as he reaches down and pulls away the cloak. His eyes widened in shock. The boy stands ready to fight, but that is not what surprises Slade. In this world of endless gray, black, and white of the Allwinter, the boy stands in stark contrast, for he is made of wondrous color, bright green, golden yellow, and the warm color of his skin that the far north has not seen in 21 years. Slade is still stunned by the boy, but they both turn as Adeline collapses from her wounds. The boy rushes to her side, and where he touches her, color returns to her body, as if the boy is able to chase away the endless gray of the Allwinter. "How the hell are you doing that?" Slade whispers. The boy turns to him, holding up his hands that are now stained in a vibrant red. "She's bleeding!" the boy cries. Slade is snapped back to reality and moves forward, pushing the boy aside. "Out of my way then," he growls. He holds up his ex-wife. "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, Addie," he whispers. She grits her teeth as he takes hold of the ice dagger. "You're a lying bastard, Slade," she hisses. Slade nods. Yes, I am," he agrees as he pulls the weapon free. The boy tears off some of the dead men's cloaks and hands it to him. Slade still stares at the bloody red color as he begins to dress Adeline's wounds, but the color quickly begins to fade from the cloth and his ex-wife. Later, Adeline awakens to find herself in a warm room at a local inn. Slade asleep in a chair nearby as the boy sleeps before the fire. She moves to check on the boy, whispering his name. "Alec," she calls. Slade stirs in his chair. "You look well, Adeline. Major blood loss and broken ribs notwithstanding," he whispers. She whirls and glares at him, but Slade merely questions what she has gotten involved in, motioning to the sleeping boy, who lays in stark contrast to the grayness of the room around them, and their own gray, white, and black tones. "That is none of your concern," she snaps, but Slade shakes his head. He stands, the chair and his bones creaking with the movement. He reminds her that he was paid to hunt the boy, which makes it his concern. Their heated words awaken Alec, and he shifts. "Alec, it's time for us to leave," Adeline tells him as she begins to dress. He looks at her with concern. "But how will we reach Gillingham without anyone helping us?" he questions. Slade looks at them in surprise, reminding them that 1,000 miles of deadlands and Draugr lay between them and the old capital. "And you're in no shape to travel," he points out as Adeline winces in pain as she pulls on her clothes, and she glares at him. "You picked a fine time to start giving a damn, considering you murdered our escort," she snaps. Slade glares back at her. "I was doing my job," he snaps, but his features soften as he offers to help, holding out a hand, but Adeline slaps it away. "If you think I'll let you endanger another child after what you did to our sons, you're more than a fool than I thought you were. Now get the hell away from me before I take your other eye," she hisses at him. A short time later, Slade watches from the inn window as Adeline and Alec ride off into the snowy forest. But he looks down at the flask in his hand, the loving inscription that Adeline had carved into it, glaring up at him. Slade sighs as he turns away. Days pass as Adeline and Alec ride through the frozen north, with the boy questioning why Jarl Vander would have sent assassins to kill him. Because you're going to save the world, child, Adeline promises him. They continue to ride forward until they reach the edge of a large forest. It looks dark in there, Addie, Alec whispers. Adeline smiles and slips off the horse. My youngest was frightened of the dark too, but I would tell him, when it grows darkest without, hunt for the fire within, she assures him. She pulls out her axe and begins to lead the horse through the forest, clearing a path with the axe as they move forward. What happened to your children? Alec finally asks her, but a voice calls out from the brush in an answer. The same that happens to all my father touches, boy. He destroyed them, Rose says as she steps out of the shadows. Adeline steps forward, raising her weapon and pulling free a second axe. Rose smiles as she draws her own weapon and shrugs off her cloak. Hello, Adeline. I fear you've not aged like wine in our years apart, but give me the boy and I'll allow you to keep withering, Rose calls. Adeline readies herself. You're working for Vander, just like your father. My father betrayed his Jarl, broke his contract. I am nothing like him, Rose growls. But Adeline shakes her head. You're taking Alec over my dead body, she snaps. Rose nods her head and smiles. Acceptable. Rose rushes forward and their blades meet. Adeline ducks under an attack and comes up swinging, slashing Rose across her armor. But Rose moves with the blow and punches Adeline hard enough to knock away her helm. She brings her axe down on the woman's hand, bringing forth a spurt of blood and a cry of pain. But suddenly, an axe comes whirling out of the woods. Rose turns quickly and knocks it away. She glares as Slade steps from the forest. Hello, pumpkin. Surprised to see me? Slade asks his daughter, but Rose shakes her head. I see the future, father. Nothing you do surprises me anymore. Rose snaps as she rushes forward, her shield slammed into Slade. He dodges another attack and hits her hard, knocking her back. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, daughter. Jarl Vander is a ruthless bastard, Slade says as he kicks her hard. The blow is powerful, and Rose is thrown back, landing hard against the branches of a fallen tree that stab through her chest. Slade stares at his daughter for a moment. Didn't see that coming, did you? He asks. He turns back to Adeline and Alec and offers her a hand up. Need a hand, love? He asks. Adeline glares at him, but accepts the offer. Suddenly, Rose is behind them, driving a fallen tree limb through Slade and into Adeline. Slade stares in shock as his former wife dies in his arms. They both fall to the floor, blood oozing around them, and Rose stands over her father, sword in hand. Slade rolls over, but Adeline is already dead on the ground. Rosie! Wait, Slade gasps, but no one is watching Alec, and tears spill from the boy's eyes as he looks at Adeline. His powers begin to glow, color washing off him in waves, spilling out into the world. You killed Addie, he whispers. No! He bellows with rage as he rises into the air, a shockwave of energy lashing out and throwing Rose away. As the energy flows away, Alec falls to the floor. The snow has melted away, and the full color has returned to a small portion of the world. Slade stares in shock for a moment. "Impressive, boy," he gasps before slipping into the darkness. Around them, the world slowly returns to the endless gray as Alex's power slips away, leaving him crouched on the ground, alone. And that is where we end issue 2 of Dark Knights of Steel Allwinter. What did you guys think of the start to this new tale in the Game of Thrones style DC universe? Let us know in the comments down below, and of course, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.